What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. OG here, and let's just get right into it. We were bamboozled, for lack of a better term, right? So let me explain. This goes all the way back to FC25, the worst game in the history of the franchise. And on console, it was the peak of the unresponsive era, right? There's all these eras. The unresponsive era was essentially a long time coming where the game just didn't feel good. Every time you turned it on, it went from virtually unplayable to really good to not good, not bad to back to unplayable, and all it was on a spectrum, right? Every time you turned on the game, there was a different experience. And one of the things that finally came out was that it's not equal on both sides. Meaning, for a long time, it was just like, even though you could see with your own eyes, which blows my mind, it was just widely accepted that if one person was lagging, right, or delayed or whatever, the other person had that same command delay, that same glitchiness. That just isn't the case, and you can tell. I mean, when one player can barely get a pass off before the opponent's right in their face, they can't get a shot off before getting tackled, no matter how open they were to begin with. The defenders are catching up. They can never get the ball off the opponent because the opponent's just moving too quick. For some reason, many people were just like, oh, that opponent's really good. Even though you could see the difference in speed and in the release of passes and shots and stuff, it just apparently was glossed over. Except for Inception. Now, fast forward to FC25 from FC22, which is where I began my competitive journey and where I know more about this long line of going in the wrong direction for EA Sports, including the bad gameplay, right? So now we are starting to see a transition to PC because of that bad gameplay that I'm talking about, right? Everybody's getting sick of the unresponsiveness, inconsistent gameplay, and apparently PC, it's just better, okay? So that makes sense. A lot of content creators are saying we're playing on PC, but there's not this huge fuss about you must go to PC. It's just like, there's more responsiveness. Meanwhile, EA Sports, for the first time in years, says they're going to build a game for the player base, listening to our feedback, and they actually address, this is the most important part, they address that unresponsive, that inconsistent gameplay that chased many content creators to PC. And EA Sports tells us all about how it's fixed and what was causing the issues. And in the process, they say nothing really about the servers, nothing about the game engine. And some of the content creators just basically say it is putting a band-aid over a bullet wound, but because of it's EA Sports, they're big and rich and powerful, and it might be a big enough band-aid to actually make the game playable still. Well, next thing you know, the beta comes out, and guess what? EA Sports seems to have told the truth. The connection's incredible. I play the beta, see firsthand how much more responsive it is. I mean, I went from the whole and almost the entirety of SC25 without getting truly good gameplay. There's some acceptable moments, if you will, but for the most part, the game was virtually unplayable. And it was either I fully was lagged out and couldn't move against my opponent, or my opponent was fully lagged out against me. Even in PlayStation tournaments, which was actually the worst of it, it ended up being like the host of those tournaments would win automatically because the away player couldn't move. But that's a different setup as far as the connection, how the connection works, and typical, in console FC. Right. Well, they're both in console, but in game FC, right, in the way they connect opponents. But all around in console FC26 seemed to be better. Xbox, PlayStation, everyone was talking about how much more responsive it was, right? But the key that everyone seems to forget where we're at right now is that these bigger content creators just seem to know, right? They all made that switch because once the confirmation was in that the beta was great, and a lot of these content creators got to play it on console, some of them, but they still were playing PC after years of playing on console, right? PC was never even a thought because they were largely considered the hackers. I mean, people turn off crossplay because of these hackers. So now you're telling me all of a sudden a lot of a good amount of these content creators are just going to go deal with that when you don't have to in console, it wasn't really making sense. Okay? So, now FC26 comes out full release, and someone in my chat called it, I still haven't figured out. There's someone in my community, but I can't put my finger on who exactly it was, but they came in and they said, the connection's good now, but once full release comes, you watch, it's going to be the same bad gameplay. And sure enough, full release comes out, and for whatever reason, don't ask me why, but the best gameplay and it was all day long. I went undefeated the entire day, and it was the best gameplay I felt. Beta, everything was on full release day. So that gave me ridiculous amounts of hope because the gameplay had started feeling a little rough. Okay? And it culminates in what you just seen right there. A game in which I absolutely dominated, if you've been watching in the background, but had to get lucky and win when the opponent overhit a shot after me trying to keep the ball and hold on for dear life because I literally could not move. Now in this game it was all of a sudden, but in other games it will go throughout. There's really no rhyme or reason for it, right? But sure enough, on the full release day, the gameplay was great, but then unfortunately just a day after it goes back to the inconsistent gameplay and actually starts getting even worse, to the point where you'd have these large clusters of games that were unplayable, large clusters that weren't the greatest but were at least playable. Then you'd have a couple games thrown in there with great gameplay, and you had this constant change in gameplay, just like FC25, where more and more games became unplayable, less and less were actually enjoyable, right? And I'm talking, you started forgetting about that really good gameplay real quick because of how bad the gameplay was overall. And then when you got those glimpses, you would realize how ridiculous it was. And you realize pretty quickly as well that once again, you were duped, right? EA Sports knew exactly what was going on. They knew that they were putting a Band-Aid over a bullet wound. They knew that they were making these changes and it was going to be great, but it wasn't going to work as far as the servers went and the number of players in their servers that bogged the game down. Because we were asking those questions, but EA Sports, they didn't say a word about it. They were talking about how they needed to make the game better for the players. We knew that they didn't want to be hurt financially, so we just assumed, okay, surely they wouldn't lie to us. But I kept asking it over and over, right? Surely they wouldn't lie to us. Like, they're not saying for sure, like, yes, this will take care of that server issue that makes it. They just kept saying, oh, the inconsistent gameplay, that's the thing that you guys can't stand. But then they didn't really address the actual inconsistent gameplay from the servers. They just made the game overall more responsive, the gameplay, right? But the gameplay, as good as it is, means nothing when you're totally lagged out. You can't move, your commands don't go in on time. And of course, the worst part is that very few games are like both players are delayed equally, right? One player will be way more unresponsive than the other, have way more command delay than the other. Sometimes one player will be flying and the other player will be just, they can't move, right? And I experience this both ways, without a doubt, but obviously I'm the most vocal when I'm mad and I'm competing and I know I'm better than a player, just like any competitor, and I can't move at all and I'm watching them play absolutely horrible, but they end up beating me 2-3-4 to 1-2, whatever it is, because even though I have tremendous amount of command delay, I'm able, because of the skill difference, to score a couple, but ultimately I just can't keep up. And to the naked eye, this, of course, it's not as easy to see too, so then, of course, that's going through your head as a content creator that they can't even see this. They're just seeing, oh, you're making excuses. But then I realized, only trolls would be saying, oh, excuses, oh, you whine about everybody who beats you, because the real ones know from playing the game. The real ones are looking for answers just like me, and that's how they found this video or this channel, and because I try to keep it honest with every single thing. And that's what a lot of content creators don't, which brings me back to the big bamboozle. We already can expect it from EA Sports because they just want our money. We've known that. They did make a great game, but again, the servers are terrible. And clearly, I don't think it's a coincidence that the content creators knew that this was coming. But they couldn't go tell all of their subscribers, all the followers, all of us who look to these bigger content creators, because they know a lot of them talk to devs at EA Sports and have these connections that we don't. And they, of course, weren't going to just come out and tell everybody, hey, you know that terrible FC25 game? Well, buy FC26 because I'm going to be covering it again. But listen, you got to go out and buy a PC, get rid of your console, forget your other games you play. In order to play, you got to get a PC. And on top of getting a PC, if you want this great connection that the pros have, that I have, you're going to need a whole separate internet connection just for your FC. And most people would say, sorry, man, we like you, so-and-so and so-and-so, but we're not doing that. It was fun while it lasted. We're going to go play another game. And the content creators know that. And so all they did was quietly, the responsiveness is better. So they go to PC. All their console followers that they could have helped out, like, listen, look at the difference here. Hey, guys, I'm going to go to PC. I can't stand playing console anymore. It's driving me crazy. The game just feels better. It's more responsive on PC. You guys are like, okay, cool. We play console, you play PC, no big deal. Now, how about this approach? Guys, listen. No matter what EA Sports says, no matter how responsive they make the game, right, it's going to be awful on console. You need to purchase, if you really want to compete in this game at the highest level, you need to purchase PC. If not, okay, you can play on console, but just be ready for that hit or miss gameplay, and sometimes it's going to be extremely frustrating. Whereas on PC, you're going to get great gameplay. Now, you're going to have to deal with hackers. That's the part that's going to be bad. But at least with hackers, you see it, you know what they're doing. You can't even move. You can't, and then you just get out. And eventually, EA Sports is 100%. They're already working on attacking these hackers, and everyone knows about it. Whereas on console, you're going to play through these games, especially as a content creator. There's going to be all these trolls, because sometimes it's not even going to be obvious that you're lagged out and your opponent is not. Sometimes it's going to look just fine. And the only way that people following you are going to be able to tell is if they play the game and if they experience this. And that's just a huge psychological situation, right? Like in this game you're seeing right here, I had really good gameplay, right? Tremendous. And it was a great feeling because I wasn't getting that a lot, right? So throughout this game, I'm super excited. I'm having fun. But the main thing I'm also doing is almost talking to the trolls like, see, do you see how a real game is played? Do you notice how I'm defending? Notice my manual defending? Notice how I'm attacking? Right? Remember that last game where all the opponent had to do was just do a simple turn and they'd beat me? Oh, and you're telling me that's a skill issue and not lag? Look how I'm getting on breakaways. Look at my quickness of shots. Oh, you're telling me it's not lag, that last game. And like, so now the frustration's coming out because when you get these really good games, right, where you can move, where you can, as you see right there, manually defend, which is done, can be so, it's beautiful in this game, period. The skill gap, everything, it's beautiful. The goals, you see there, the realism in the chips, the realism in the shots, everything's just well done. The little kinks that there are, they can get out. But during this game, as I'm enjoying it, I'm also understanding this is going to be few and far between. And I'm also mad as a content creator because I feel like I have to address something I shouldn't. And I don't. It's just the trolls. The people who play know how bad the consistency of the gameplay is. The content creators knew, and that's why they're gone. But they didn't come out and say, you must buy PC if you want to play at a high level. Listen, you must, or you're going to have a terrible time, or at least it's going to be very inconsistent. Like, it was just, PC's more responsive, and then you move on. And that way you have kind of plausible deniability. Like, hey, man, I told you guys I was going PC. You could have done it. But it wasn't like, no, you didn't just, you could have told us, right? Because as far as we were concerned, EA Sports fixed this or put a big enough, like I said, Band-Aid on to make a difference. Guys, look at the responsive. Look. And then we played on beta. Look at this responsiveness. Look, it's good. It's good. Look. And then early release comes, and even then it was like, it's not as good as beta. It is sometimes, but it's still good. It's way better. It's playable, guys. All the while, people know as soon as full release comes and those servers are just loaded up, boom, back to what it was before. No matter how good the game is, that disappears. And we could have been warned this. I personally would have went PC. I'm on a PC right now, gaming PC. We'll just restart your account. Well, it's not that simple, or it is, but it isn't, right? And the reason why I say that is because there's tons of people out there that couldn't possibly fathom about, oh, well, I'm just going to buy another game. It's early enough. I'll buy it on PC. A lot of people don't even have a PC, or if they could have prepared to get one, it's way too late now. So I'm not going to leave those people hanging. I'm going to be right here in the trenches playing console. Now, when you want to talk about the other football games, this is sad. I wish it wasn't true, but this is just the truth. I spent last year playing every game. No, they do not experience. You do not experience anything close to the delay or anything like that in eFootball or UFL. Some people in certain areas complain about it, but for the most part, it's great connection, perfect. You could run, the game and then watch 10 movies across 10 different devices, play 10 different games at the same time, and you won't lag out or have command delay or anything. That's why it's always funny when people bring up internet and connection. Oh, are you on Wi? Are you on LAN, or is other things running on your internet? Dude, no other game has that issue. No other game, right? And as much as UFL and eFootball, you don't experience this nonsense with the delay, FC26 is still that much better of a game, to where it's still worth dealing with all this nonsense that we're talking about, as opposed to going to play those games without, any delay or without glitchiness, right? So I want to rest that case, because some will say, well, why don't you just go play the alternate football games? No, this is still the best game. And by the way, I firmly believe that the players who are taking advantage of this bad gameplay, they're the ones that are to blame more, and that's who is the ultimate enemy this year, even more so than EA Sports. So even just in the sense of not backing down and battling the rats and the cheaters, I am all in, right? Not to mention, I still know that we're in a great place with EA Sports, where they still don't want their numbers to be absolutely crushed. And they did produce a great game. So now if we can get them to literally address the servers, address the game engine that's far too out of date, right? If we can now get those underlying foundational issues fixed, and you keep the direction they're going with the gameplay, then we can look back on this as a true revolution. The change from a selfish company making a nonsense game for football-loving fans to a company that bent the knee to the true people in power when it comes to football gaming, or any gaming, and that is the players themselves. They finally bent the knee to those who control if a game's good or not, because we decide to pay or not. And unfortunately, many of these rat losers would gladly pay for the game as it is, because instead of getting whooped all the time because they have no skill, they're too lazy to even work on it and try to get skill, they see, oh, this is an opportunity. And so you have cheaters that will literally try to manipulate the connection of the game so that they can try to compete and make up for their lack of skill, right? Taking away the skill gap because their opponent can't move. And then you have the absolute rats, right? So cheaters are rats without a doubt. But rats aren't always cheating. They might just get into a game knowing that the gameplay's terrible, and what they do is they forego playing actual football. They, just like the cheaters, try to use shortcuts, try to use anything but football to make up for their lack of skill and to try to win the game or compete. And they're loving it because they're able to. The skill gap, once again, it's removed. Their opponent can't move. Now they can do all these things. But it proves nothing, right? It would be like going out and competing against cones and acting like you won the game and you beat some great team. Dude, you dribbled around cones. Congrats. You beat an opponent that can't move. Congrats. But even when the delay, the command unresponsiveness, whatever you guys call it, the crappy gameplay, right, Even when that is clearly giving an advantage to one player, that doesn't mean you have to stop playing football. There is no point in it, right? For example, you could still pass and move and work on playing just the same as you would no matter what's going on with your opponent. You don't have to say, okay, I can tell he can't move, so I'm going to start going for tacklebacks. I'm going to start dribbling with just one player because he's pretty good, and when I try to pass, he still has an opportunity. But because he's so delayed in his movements, if I just dribble with my one player, I can just keep scoring goals. He can't get the ball, and I can win the game. But that does nothing, and you were making a choice to do that. Now, how do you not do it? Well, just watch my streams, guys. I've played over and over and over where it's clear my opponent is lagging. I show it, I talk to the opponent, and yet I still play football. And at the end, they have respect for me for that, and I'm showing respect for the competition, for the game. It's that simple, but these rat losers don't get it. So you'll have people come on and go, guys, it's not their fault that EA Sports made such a bad game, or it's not their fault that the delay's so bad for one person. That's EA Sports. Yes, you're right. But it's still the person, the player base, us as a player base. It's our decision individually if we want to truly play football or not. And all these players who abuse the inconsistent gameplay, they're the same ones that ruin the game by abusing the broken mechanics. Okay? So what you'll see from me, for example, is on corner kicks, I have to go for that drive to byline and serve to the back post. Because in doing that, I draw the opponent's players over to the byline, and then I can maybe play the ball and get a shot on goal or potentially score, right? If you try to cross it regular, if you try to play the ball regular, right, with all the players in the box, and a player even has half decent skill, which these rat losers most of the time don't, but even just a little, or just a delay causes you to get the ball stripped from you, you're going to get countered and you're going to get scored on. So you're going to turn a corner kick into a goal for your opponent if you do not go for that glitch corner to draw your opponents over, so then you can get an open enough shot to shoot the ball without being delayed when you're trying to shoot, getting stripped. Your opponent plays one through ball, and now they turn your corner into goal. It happens over and over and over. Not to mention, they're going to go down with corners and do the same thing to you. So now, if you want to compete, you have to think like this. And that's all because of these rat loser players. If we all just played football, which is the whole reason you would think people want to buy and put time, effort, money, thousands of hours into a football simulator, right? You have all these players, dude, I don't even care. I don't play that much, bro. Why are you tripping? It's a game. They all talk the same. And it's like, well, I'm tripping because you are deciding to waste your time and therefore waste everybody else's by running into an opponent over and over after you lose the ball, by dribbling with one player because your opponent can't move because you're terrible at passing. You're deciding to win a game by cheating, basically, instead of playing football and getting better, knowing you already have an advantage because your opponent can't move. So I'm not saying these players don't experience it on their end too, but they just quit, or they obviously get their butts kicked. Whereas real players, will win some games even when there's lag because we can make up for the skill difference. However, rat losers, they just cut out any chance at all because they go for constant shortcuts. It becomes not even a football game at that point. And so if we want a truly good football game as a player base, which we know this isn't going to happen, but we could already have one now, to where even when the gameplay is terrible for one person or the other, at least we're all playing football. And it takes away a lot of the headache, a lot of the nonsense feeling of like, what's the point, right? A lot of that, like those who like watching great football as well as competing, it takes away the wasted time feeling of watching, because who wants to watch some rat loser run around with one player while the other can't move? Or watch a player constantly make bad passes only to sprint and get to the defender and win the ball back before they can move, or constantly get beat and give up what would be sure goals, but the opponent's so delayed that they're able to get the ball back before the player who's lagged out can shoot. I mean, it's all nonsense. And for the most part, not all of it, but for a lot of it, these rat losers make it way worse. Okay? So yes, EA Sports is to blame. They need to fix this underlying issue. Yes, the rat losers can't change that, but they can absolutely change all the rat nonsense that goes on in game from these players just not playing football. Note to all the rat losers out there, you're not proving anything. It means nothing to run around a bunch of players that can't move. It means nothing to lose the ball over and over and just tackle it back and then go on and score. You could win 100-0 like that and you got nowhere. You could become the #1 player in the world like that and you accomplish nothing, right? Taking advantage of a situation where your opponent can't properly play. It's literally like in real life, you go out to race a buddy or an opponent and they have a broken leg. Are you going to still run around the track and then celebrate as if you won something when your opponent literally has a broken leg and you're running healthy? No, because it's an absolute waste of time. You'd look like a fool competing against someone with a broken leg, right? But you do it in FC, right? And I know you can't just quit the game. I'm not saying that. So maybe in that sense, the analogy is bad. But how you don't look like a fool in this sense is you just play football. It's that easy. You just play football, right? Really what you're doing, if I'm to say the proper analogy, would be you're not only competing against an opponent with a broken leg, but right out of the gate, you're pushing them over. Instead of just running fair and square and seeing if you win, which you're going to because your opponent has a broken leg. And if somehow that opponent with a broken leg beats you in the race, right, and you would have to push them over in order to win, well, then guess what? You deserve to lose. And winning by pushing them over is an absolute loser move just because they were better than you even at a handicap. Keep that in mind the next time you're going to go out and decide to take your shortcuts. Or if you want to keep doing it, go ahead. Just know that you're the butt of the joke. You're the one wasting your time. We'll move on. We still have skill. We will still play football. And at the end of the day, the best football game will prevail, and we'll be here for it, boys and girls. So, if this video was helpful or you enjoyed it, please smash that like button. Please subscribe if you haven't done so, and please, if you want to support the channel, all the links to my Discord, to the merchandise, everything is in my YouTube bio. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.